All right, Aliyah. Already got my start in white. I'm gonna just do the tiniest bit with the black right now. You don't really need much, but at least just a little bit for the very beginning part of this. Just straight up regular black, just to touch up a few of the really just darkest parts. Nice sharp point. I'm not going to do too much with the eyebrow. I'm just doing a little bit of it just so there's like a base to work on. But I can always add more of that later. I'm just kind of doing some of that so it doesn't disappear completely. Underneath the nose. Literally like almost nothing, just to kind of get that very dark, the nostril, and a little touch up around there. Just a little bit right there. Indent near the mouth, corner of the mouth for sure. Underneath the lower lip. I'm not pressing down super duper hard with the black either, so don't go too crazy. Real sharp point. Get the but there, same thing here. I'm just doing just a couple strands of hair with the eyebrow just for base. I would do the hair in and around over here, and then truthfully, honestly, I don't really think you need much more than that. The rest will be all just with the shades of blue. All right, the shades of blue. What do we got? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the powder blue. That blue slate. And I think the periwinkle. All right, so I think you picked a few too many colors because a lot of them, like the middle one, like the blue slate, was kind of really similar to the other one, and the powder blue, the other one was really similar too. So I would limit this down to three: a light, a medium, and a dark. So that's what was I got? Periwinkle, blue slate, and powder blue.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, and then, as usual, start with the lightest color first. Just whitest, brightest spots. I'm gonna kind of leave kind of bright, but this is sort of gonna be my first layer of like light gray. So wherever you see that lightest gray that you know I didn't really put white on, I'm kind of going over the white a little bit, but then that medium, sort of light to medium area. So like the bridge of the nose here. Just comb it a little tighter. Let me turn on the lights in the classroom so it's a little brighter. Better. Hard to see, but I'm not really putting a ton of color in there. So the tip of the nose I'll keep pretty much white. Work a little bit of blue around it. Again, I'm with the powder blue. blue. Center of the lip where the biggest highlight is, probably going to just leave that white, but work some of the powder blue in and around it. And I think for my first pass with the lightest blue, that's pretty much it. Gonna switch over now to the slate blue. I'm gonna go slate blue. Slate blue should kind of transition basically to my dark parts, and I think I'm going to go in with a slightly darker blue anyway to kind of bring out some of those shadows. So really I want to kind of use this to bridge between the light blue that I just put on and the areas of the paper right now that are still like sort of brownish. And if I go over some of that black with this color, it's really not that big a deal either. So just keep that in mind, that like after this pass, I think a lot of the brown of the paper will at least have a little bit of a shade of blue on it. And, you know, I guess the one good thing about working in blues is, you know, we got a lot of options for how to make things darker as far as like colors and everything else like that. So this color, when you're doing it, you know, the only thing that you want to watch out for is any of your really light sections. But outside of your light sections, really, you can't really go wrong putting some of this in your shadows. So like in all these areas that are pretty much just bare paper at this point, I'm putting down at least a little bit of it. I'm avoiding my highlighted areas, but I am mixing a little bit, especially of this, onto the edges where I had that powder blue. And over the black, you could put a little bit of this over top of the black. Again, you strive for even coverage. Don't try to scribble as quickly as I am. So you can see at this juncture, for the most part, and I'll do a little bit of this color in the eyebrows, because your eyebrows are not like all like super thick and jet black. So you're going to see a little skin color in them, so it's okay to get a little bit of that blue in there. And for the most part, you can see at this juncture, almost all of the brown on the skin of the paper itself is pretty much got at least a little bit of color on it. And this is where I'll switch over now to Periwinkle. And I'll start with Periwinkle just thinking it's going to be my darker tone. So I'll just pick up on some of the darker spots with this. But I think, you know, I'm going to use this first, and then maybe I'm going to just find, for some of the darkest areas, just one more shade of blue that's a little bit darker. So I'm just using this sparingly, and definitely in the areas near what I put down as black, and pretty much as my darker shades. So like maybe just a touch of it, especially in and underneath the eyes on this side. And here, this area over here by the orbital bone on this eye. Definitely some in the eyebrow. part of the forehead. A little bit in here, a little bit in this part of the brow. Edges of the hairline, very lightly on the cheek here, just to kind of bring out the definition. Corner of the mouth for sure. Corner of the lips. All right, back to white. Another layer, brighten some of this stuff up now that there's a little bit of blue and stuff like that on there. You can kind of punch things up a little bit and give it just a little bit more pressure on the pencil, and kind of just start to fill in a little bit more of those ridges and textures in the paper. Should brighten everything up just a little bit. Again, pretty much doing the same parts that you did for the initial start, just another layer of it. Any areas that might have gotten a little too blue from those first layers of color, this is your chance to kind of brighten them up again. So if you accidentally, kind of added a little too much in some area and it just wasn't working or didn't look right, this is the time to brighten it up. And more than anything else, make sure, just like you faded it out on the edges when I transitioned from like the bright spots to like the medium spots, you're doing the same. Like you're really just repeating the very, very first step. So don't go, overboard. Don't do anything differently than it looked like when you started, except this time now you're doing it on top of a layer of color. Highlight in the lip, I'll add just a little bit more. The lower lip gets a little bit brighter. And maybe just a touch on the outside here. All right, and then I am repeating. Powder blue. Second go around, I'm pressing down just a little bit harder, getting just a little bit more color in there. This should be that first shade of gray. I am sort of fading in from the white areas, like here on the cheek, and then as I get in over here where I put down some of that darker blue, I'm just letting a little bit of that fade into that as well. So I'm just trying to build a layer that has the powder blue basically as a transition from white to my next darkest blue. And again, I'm at this point trying to fill in the grain of the paper a little bit more, just a little bit more color in it. I don't think I'll be done with just 2 layers. I think this is at least three layers of color to go over. But I don't want to barely add anything. I want to make sure that the paper starts to look like it's getting filled up a little bit. Didn't put enough white up here. I'm going to add a little bit more white before I add more layers to it, but right over here on the brow, just a little bit more right above the eyebrow. And then coming back with my line of blue. Just a little bit. Okay, and then back to my periwinkle. Periwinkle, as of just for right now, is definitely going to be my darker gray, or medium to dark gray that's going to be in the face. And I think I'm going to need to pick one more blue that's going to be a little bit darker than that to kind of push it, but for right now, everywhere that you see sort of a darker gray, that's where that should be put in. Top over here, colors are starting to pop, starting to look like a blue face. Well, like I said before, I think we're gonna have to do at least 3 layers of color here. Before we're done. All right. I don't think I'll finish the total last layer here, but I'll definitely get some of it done, and I think that's hopefully enough for you to get working, right?
Yes.
I think what I'll do though is I think we need one more blue, like a darker blue, just for some of the really recessed, like shaded shadows. Let me see. Let me just see what this looks like. I pulled this before. I didn't want to go with like one of the ultramarines, so we're going to use denim blue for like our darker shadows. If you find a different blue that you like better, obviously you could just use that. But I think we need just one more level of darkness here. So I'm going to do a little bit on my last layer and use a little bit of the denim blue to kind of just punch it out. Gonna go a little heavy right on those bright spots, like bridge of the nose, tip of the nose, right here on the cheek, third pass, middle of the forehead. I feel like those areas should probably get pretty heavy. Middle of the lips, especially on the lower. And here we need a little bit. Up over there. Touch over here. I'm gonna kind of focus just on here to kind of get this area like almost finished. So at least you have one spot that looks like almost done with all the colors on it, instead of going over the whole face just for time's sake. So I'm back on my powder blue, kind of filling in a lot of the texture of the paper at this point. Avoiding the spots that should be reading as almost like pure white. Let's do a little bit of a nostril over here, and then I'm gonna just go to the next color. Sharpen. Slate blue. Just gonna finish mostly around the eye and that half of the nose right now. So kind of using the blue slate to blend in the edges of the two colors. And on the cheek. Periwinkle. Okay. I think this is where I'll go in with the denim blue a little bit. Denim blue, I'll Nice sharp point. I'll kind of go over some of the black inside the eye and stuff like that. I think I'll do this with denim blue first, and if I need to make something darker, then I could add just a touch of black to it. But I think for these outlines and stuff like that, or the real edges and maybe like a little hint at the lashes, I simply just use the denim. I think for the start of the eyebrows here, nice sharp point on top of the skin part that would be totally finished on this. I think, again, the denim blue or whichever blue, dark blue you decide to use, I think that would kind of work. And again, you want to kind of keep your mark making over here to go pretty much with whatever's going with the actual hairs on the eyebrows and that sort of direction. Less is more. You can always add more to it. But again, like what I just did right over there was with a real sharp point. And if I really needed to, I would come back. I could kind of hit it up with just a little bit of black, just in some spots to add a little more depth to it. But I wouldn't go crazy with black anywhere in there. A little bit just on the edge of the nostril, just to heighten it. And I would go over that original black area in the recess here with it. Maybe just a touch underneath. Lightly in here, maybe just to add a little depth to that area. Lightly in there, just to add a little depth to the area. If it looks a little scratchy right now, you can always blend it in to that part by using the lighter of the two colors. And again, I would just use this in the darkest area, and then at least for the beginning part of this thing, I would use this instead of my black. And let's just say, like, all right, like right here, I want this blended in a little more. I would take the periwinkle and just kind of like go over it. The periwinkle will kind of work as your blending stump. So if you have spots where you added a little bit of that and you feel like it went on a little not as smooth as you'd like it at this point, just take the next lightest color, and you can almost use that next lightest color as like a little bit of a blending stump. And I don't think it needs more than that, but if you do want to add more darkness to it, again, like any of the creases and the thin ones, I would just sharpen your point and carefully do it with that blue. And I would limit any black that you add to this. I said, like, if you absolutely needed it in the corner here, I would put a little bit, but I really wouldn't add any more anywhere else. So that little spot right there, that would be our quasi-finished area. I still think that you can kind of fill in a bunch of this with some white. You can even use a blending stump if you want after that. Good?
Yes.
Okay.